Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a truly fascinating subject. When you hear about artificial intelligence regulation, your mind probably jumps straight to product safety, right? Preventing rogue robots or maybe dealing with deepfakes. But there's an entirely different layer to this story playing out globally right now. We're going to look at how AI regulation isn't just about safety, it's actually a high-stakes global chess match over fundamental human rights and digital sovereignty. The rules being written today are quite literally about global power, and Europe, well, they're making a massive calculated move.
Okay, let's dive into this playbook. First, we'll cover AI and global power, then break down the divide of providers versus adopters. Next, we'll check out the bully pulpit strategy, Europe's regulatory weapon, the hidden issue of embedded values, and finally, the rise of tech states. Ready to decode the complex world of international relations and AI? Let's go!
Section 1. AI and Global Power, the New Spatial Divide.
To start, we kind of need to shift our perspective on what AI actually is on the world stage. It's got these hidden spatial and political dimensions. We're defining the geopolitics of AI as the study of the digital ecosystem created by this latest wave of tech and its profound geopolitical implications. And I want to be really clear here, this is distinctly different from geopolitics through AI. Geopolitics through AI is just digital diplomacy, like a state using algorithms to conduct traditional foreign policy. The geopolitics of AI, that's entirely different. It's about how the very existence of this new digital ecosystem fundamentally rewires global power dynamics. And this brilliantly illustrates what our source material is highlighting. You can view AI regulation through two overlapping lenses. You've got classical geopolitics, which focuses on raw territorial interests and physical state power. Think server farms, massive energy grids, microchips. But then you have critical geopolitics, which pays attention to discourse, ideology, and the actual values embedded in the technology itself. AI sits smack in the middle of both.
Moving right along, Section 2, Providers versus Adopters, a New Global Dichotomy.
We are witnessing a massive paradigm shift. The old way of looking at the world, like the global north versus the global south, is rapidly being replaced by a completely new technological division. The world is splitting into AI-providing countries and AI-adopting countries. Providing countries like the US and China have massive domestic AI industries, immense computing power, and the talent to build these systems from scratch. Adopting countries are forced to rely on foreign tech. Now, why this matters is absolutely crucial. Because most nations, and that includes the vast majority of the European Union, lack these massive domestic AI industries, they become highly vulnerable to the values, biases, and ideologies embedded in the systems they're importing from foreign providers.
So why not just strictly regulate it from day one, right? Well, it leads governments into this incredibly agonizing timing process, which is perfectly captured by the Calling Ridge dilemma. It goes like this. If you try to control a new technology in its early stages, you just don't know enough about its harmful social consequences to write good rules. But if you wait until the negative consequences are painfully obvious to everyone, well, by then the technology is already baked into society. Trying to control it becomes incredibly costly, incredibly slow, and honestly, almost impossible. So governments are practically sweating trying to find the exact right moment to step in.
Section 3, The Bully Pulpit Strategy, Shaping Tech Without Laws.
So how do global powers actually play this game? Different nations have completely different tools at their disposal, and the strategy you use depends entirely on whether you are a provider or an adopter. Take a look at this concept from scholar Joel Reidenberg. He notes that governments can use the bully pulpit to basically threaten and cajole industry into developing technical rules. When a government has massively powerful tech companies operating right inside its own borders, it doesn't always need to pass strict binding laws immediately. Policymakers can literally just call up these CEOs or indicate their political expectations publicly and subtly pressure the companies to align with national interests.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast it shows. Superpowers with tech giants like the US and China, they have a megaphone. They can successfully use that bully pulpit to lean on their domestic industries without rushing into heavy legislation that could stifle innovation. But the European Union, they are largely an AI-adopting region. They literally can't use the bully pulpit because the biggest AI providers are sitting completely outside their direct political influence. So their primary weapon has to be formal regulation. They have to enforce binding rules on any foreign system that wants access to their massive, lucrative European market.
And connecting back to our text, we can see that countries also use complementary tools, things like public funding and public procurement. A government might say require certain safety standards if a company wants to win a lucrative government contract. But obviously those tools are really only effective as a secondary strategy to reinforce things when you already have a strong domestic industry to buy from.
Which brings us to Section 4, Europe's regulatory weapon, the AI Act.
This is Europe's specific countermove in this global chess match. Since they lack the bully pulpit, they crafted the AI Act. It's not just a set of product safety guidelines. Think of it as a regulatory shield designed to protect European citizens against the imposition of foreign values. Now, normally in the EU, member states pass their own laws first, creating a totally fragmented map. And then the central EU legislator comes in later to harmonize them. That's called ex post harmonization. But with the AI Act, the EU completely flipped the script. They shifted to proactive ex ante harmonization. They stepped in before member states could create a mess of conflicting laws. This proactive move was deeply geopolitical, driven by anxiety over how non-EU countries were developing this tech.
So the crucial point is that this strategy is genuinely resonating globally. Take a look at Brazil. Huge country, member of the BRICS nations, they are actively looking to the EU model right now as they draft their own AI regulations. Why? Because Brazil is also an AI adopting country. They share the exact same need as Europe. They want to protect their local societal values and fundamental rights from being steamrolled by a few foreign global AI providers. They're essentially copying the EU's homework because that framework offers a literal blueprint for digital defense.
Section 5. Embedding values in AI. Code as culture.
Okay, so this all begs the question. What exactly are these countries defending against? It's the invisible dangers lurking within the software itself. We have to remind ourselves constantly that technology is never truly neutral. Code is culture. Let's de-jargonize this illusion for a second. AI is not magic. It's not actually intelligence in the human sense. It's just computer-based mathematical tools, neural networks, regression models, applied to massive data sets. Human developers choose the algorithms. Human developers pick the data. And because humans make those choices, human biases, values, and blind spots are inevitably baked right into the system.
So what actually influences the values an AI system holds? Well, business interests, for one, the pursuit of profit. Then there's data quality and diversity. If your data lacks representation from certain groups, the AI will literally just ignore them. It's driven by algorithm design and by social and geographical representation. In our daily lives, when we use AI for hiring or lending or content moderation, those abstract embedded values translate directly into very real bias, stereotyping, and totally unfair outcomes for regular people. This right here is the core of the geopolitical anxiety. When an AI-adopting country uses systems developed abroad, they aren't just importing a piece of software, they are importing a foreign societal context. If an AI is trained entirely on data that reflects the cultural norms of, say, Silicon Valley or Beijing, its decision-making might be completely inappropriate or even actively harmful when you apply it to a local context in Rome or Rio de Janeiro.
Finally, Section 6, the rise of tech states. Who really holds the power?
Let's move to and see how this builds into the physical reality of AI. There are three staggering material sources of AI power. First, raw materials like the rare earth metals needed for chips and the highly specialized workforce. Second, the massive data sets you absolutely need to train the models. And third, the technological and cloud infrastructure to actually run them. The catch? No single geographic nation controls all these physical and digital realities at the exact same time. It's a fragmented supply chain, and it's sparked a desperate global race for digital sovereignty.
But here's the final boss of our narrative. It's not just nations running this race. Giant tech corporations are playing such an active role that they now operate as quasi-state entities. Because they own the infrastructure, they're stepping completely outside traditional democratic guardrails to make massive societal decisions. We are talking about everything from managing communication lines in active war zones via their private satellites to controlling entire political discourses through their social media algorithms.
The reality is, the AI industry is incredibly hyper-concentrated. Just a handful of these quasi-state entities control the cloud infrastructure, the data, and the jaw-dropping computing power required to build frontier AI. And through their simple terms of service, they essentially legislate behavior for billions of people. This hyper-concentration gives a few private companies the unprecedented power to shape global narratives, to provide a mass view of the world, and even to exert direct, heavy influence over the political lawmakers who are trying to regulate them.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question drawn straight from our source material. As these technologies completely reshape the balance of global power, will AI be harnessed through broad, inclusive democratic debate for the true benefit of humanity? Or are we just going to sleepwalk into despotic scenarios driven by unregulated quasi-state actors who don't answer to a single voter? The AI Act is Europe's opening move to ensure the former. But honestly, this global chess match, it's only just beginning. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring this fascinating intersection of technology and global power.